Welcome into the roundtable. I'm Brad Wakai. That is Tyson Gentry. This is our college football podcast. We have to recap the craziest that happened by starting with the top 25. We're going to go through kind of the different big games that happened, and then we'll move into games we've circled for week 8, and then we'll give you some of our bets in money-making time. But right now, we're just going to go through the top 25, kind of the games that didn't really matter. Number 1, Georgia pounded Vandy 55-0. Number 4 Clemson beat Florida State 34-28. Kind of interesting game there. Ole Miss beat Auburn 48-34. Maybe Brian Harson's last ride. Some people down a little bit. Syracuse stays undefeated 24-9 over a Devin Leary-less 15 NC State. So Syracuse moves up. Kentucky beat Mississippi State. It's in a battle of the SEC teams there, 27-17. Kansas finally gets knocked off a pedestal a bit after they get into the top 25 as Oklahoma wins by 10 there, 52-42. Texas beats Iowa State 24-21. Number 24, Illinois beats Minnesota 26-14 as they move to 6-1 and 3-1 in the Big Ten.
Jeez.
And then James Madison, number 25, peeking their way in there, lost by 7 on the road to Georgia Southern 45-38. But Tyson, the big games that happened, we got to dive into these because that's kind of your roundup here. But let's start here with the biggest game, the craziest game, probably the most impactful here.
Made us a lot of money.
Tennessee beats Alabama 52-49. And they did make us a lot of money here. Impact Alabama losing is kind of the topic here, but I'll just toss it to you. Thoughts on the game, impact in general, just like where you want to take it.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with the Alabama thing because I think people are still kind of confused on Tennessee. I don't think people, even after seeing them put up 52 on Alabama, it's turned into, well, Bama could have lost 3 games by now, which they could have, right? I mean, we're talking Ewers gets hurt against Texas. If Texas A&M can kick, we all of a sudden have a different season. If Bama can kick, they win this game. So that's kind of if, ands, and maybes. Who cares? They're Alabama. They win these games. The weird part is this is the first time somebody's dropped 50 on them since 1907 or something like that. Nick Saban looked like he was going to kill somebody immediately following the game. I was waiting for a APB alert on one of his whoever he decided to one-on-one Tennessee with pretty much all game, just putting kids out on an island. They got beat up. But it just shows that at the end of the day, sometimes complacency gets to you. And it comes for everybody in college football, and it didn't feel like it was coming for Alabama because they were able to squeak by, and not just this season, but in years past where they might drop one. Normally at this point in the season, they'll lose a game. They'll lose to a South Carolina or like Arkansas plays them really tight, something like that, and then they kind of tighten up. They were able to skate by a couple of times this year, but after so many years of just being the top dogs, it almost felt like, especially on that defense, normally when they're up, even if it's 49-42 or whatever, they're going to snap somebody's neck. And that just wasn't the case. And to me, that's the most concerning thing in Alabama.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of like a good macro look at it, Tyson. I mean, talking about the complacency here, because what did we hear from the Alabama the side of things after they lost last year to Georgia? Oh, well, this is actually a rebuilding year for us. We're ahead of schedule. I mean, next year, by the time we go in, we're going to have our defense. Bryce Young's going to be back. And the narrative has shifted a bit with this Bama team, where the defense has been in questionable positions, questionable at times to a lot of different teams. I mean, A&M's offense was horrible. And we had a prediction that they wouldn't score 2 touchdowns in the game. And they just kind of bullied that defense a bit. If Ewers doesn't get hurt, again, different story. And then now Tennessee with their high-flying offense, I mean, they really punked them and spread them out and threw all over them. I think the biggest impact of this maybe is there kind of a blueprint or a way that's Bama can be beaten in this new college football era?
Yeah.
And we've been saying that for a while, right? But it feels like the past 3 years, they're getting beaten more often.
The blueprint is to have a quarterback come in and have an all-world season, or at least an all-world game. And that's the fucking blueprint. And to hear everybody like, well, they're vulnerable, whatever. It's like it took an all-world Georgia defense, one of the best we've ever seen, to knock them off. And by the way, they split with Georgia a year ago, so it's not like they were clearly the better team, right?
Yeah, they pounded them in the SEC championship.
Yeah, they split those 2 games. Other than that, we're talking about one-offs here and there, or like Joe Burrow LSU, a Johnny Manziel A&M, stuff like that. A Hendon Hooker Tennessee. So to hear the blueprint, like, oh, there's a way to beat these guys. Yeah, have the best game in your program's history and play 60 minutes straight. And that's how you beat Alabama. And that's why everybody's freaking out. That's why I hate Bama fans, man. It's so annoying. The sky's falling, everything's over. It's like, yeah, worst case scenario, you guys are going to the Sugar Bowl. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be selling all my stock on Bama. Like, it feels like we talked about this previously. It feels like Bama has one of these, whether it's a scare or whether it's an actual loss, that it's on their schedule, and then all of a sudden Nick Saban tightens the ship up. Everybody gets a little bit more focused over there, and then they start just rolling games, rolling teams, and all of a sudden they're back in the playoff and looking at legit national title team contenders. I can see that from this Alabama team. They're too talented not to. It's just the question marks that we've had about this team all year. How good are they really on that back end of the defense? They were exposed in this one, and the receiving core continues to be disappointing for Alabama. I think as an overall impact we get here, and we can talk and kind of shift it to Tennessee, this is good for college football. I mean, this is good. You have Tennessee, who's been finding ways to lose for a decade or maybe even longer. If you're a Tennessee fan, I'm sure you have felt that pain for a lot
Since
more than just a decade. But for them to go and pull off this huge upset in the second year of a head coach who comes over from UCF, that's awesome for college football, where there's teams who can take out and slay the mighty dragon of Alabama because you play well and you're well coached and you have good quarterbacks and good players that don't end up at these different schools. Like, we're talking about Tennessee. It's not even, I don't even think they're a top 20 recruiting program. And now they're taking on Alabama, who's constantly either top 3 or number 1 overall. As an overall impact, I think this is great for the sport.
And you know what else was really cool? Watching, and just especially just about the Tennessee team. Tennessee's old, dude. Hendon Hooker's in year 6. It's a bunch of like 4th, 5th year guys in college. And it's the same thing with everybody clutching their pearls about college basketball. Like, oh, it's not the same. Nobody stays. Well, because a lot of them don't have to. And this Tennessee team, a lot of these guys, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, for Tennessee, didn't receive the draft grades they wanted a year ago, or they didn't get to play at whatever college they were at before, so they transfer in. And they were able to just kind of play it like it looked like they had Bama in deep water and not the other way around. When I was just kind of rewatching the game, it felt like Tennessee was just kind of like, okay, they punched, we're going to answer. We're just going to keep answering and answering. But one thing before we get off Bama, what was it, 1st and 10 with 32 seconds left in regulation? They lose by 3? Like, that can't happen, Nick.
No.
Like, that can't happen.
Yeah, it can happen. Now, as far as Tennessee, I mean, this is great for us personally. We had them plus 450 to win 10 games. They can now lose to Georgia, and unless they shit down their leg, we're looking good to cash that.
We got the Hendon Hooker Heisman ticket.
You're saying that might pay for your car, I think, if you hit that one. So, I mean, this is good for us. I mean, Tennessee in general, I mean, here's the thing. When you beat Alabama, you got to come ready to play it next week. And so that's the question mark. Is this team back enough where they've had a great start to the year? They just come off the biggest upset in their program in a long time. Now, you guys got to be ready to play next week, or it's really all for naught, right? So, great for Tennessee. Awesome win. It's very meaningful. You saw the images, and that's how important these games are down south. Like, this is big program-defining moments, and I'm super happy for Tennessee to be able to get that one done.
It's big business too, and apparently Bama was offering, some contingent group or whatever was offering $1 million to Dalton Kincaid to come over and play preseason. I think those bags get bigger because I don't think they like what happened at all.
Okay, let's move into this one. USC Utah, very impactful in the grand scheme of things here. Utah holds on at home 43-42, beating then number 7 USC. Now, that's USC's first loss of the year. You're happy. You feel validated in this one.
I'm confused, brother.
Well, I think all right, let's start here, then go big picture. I mean, game itself, what did you see out of both sides here, and what did you take away from it?
Well, I mean, apparently this Utah team that I was saying preseason was going to be able to punch USC in the face and they weren't going to be able to handle the physicality and all that stuff. They just played USC's game. They just said, whatever, let's see if we can score 50. Brace you. Whoever gets there first wins the game. And to me, that was the shocking part, is this has kind of been a really weird year for Utah football, coming off of a couple years consecutively of having really good defenses, and kind of that's carried the offense. And now we've seen it over and over again. Like, look at the UCLA game, right? They couldn't stop a nosebleed there. Against Florida, Anthony Richardson can't throw the ball. He looked fine against Utah. So that part was confusing. It also was very encouraging, I think, for guys like you that have a USC futures ticket to win the Pac-12. That this was, I mean, in all honesty, they've had some close ones like the Oregon State game and stuff like that, but this was the first one against a real opponent on their schedule that played them, matched them stride for stride. And that's the first time in Lincoln Riley's tenure. It's the first time in basically half the freaking roster's tenure, because they're all transfers from other places. First time playing in a big game at USC. I think it's encouraging for both sides, but Utah can't score 43 on everybody, man. I mean, that's going to be a problem in LA.
Yeah, and here's what we know about Utah itself. They're off. We thought coming in their offense would be good. This is why we were so high on them, and you were much higher on them than me coming in. That they're going to have a good offense led by Cam Rising, who's going to have a good year. But their defense is going to be nasty, right? Kyle Whittingham. And the shocking thing so far is they have played completely opposite of what we expected from them to play all year. Seems like they kind of have gone away from their identity. Now, I don't know if that's a concerted effort, and I don't think it would be under Kyle Whittingham, why he would be like, we're going to go finesse now. We're going to go.
But it feels necessary when you watch them. It almost feels like that's the way they have to play.
And that's what I'm kind of thinking. Maybe it's more of like hey, we're just going to do whatever it takes to win these games with this team, other than, hey, this is a program shift that we're going under right now. So that's just been my takeaway from Utah right now. As far as USC goes, we knew their defense stinks, right? They're getting run all over by Stanford. They're getting scored on by Rice. It's been crazy. They've been fortunate with the turnovers. And when they played Oregon State, I thought that was the first time their defense actually stepped up and played well. And in this one, they give up 1 million points, but they just do enough. Or I'm talking about Utah's defense, but I mean USC's, man. I mean that's what's concerning about it. And we've been talking about that for a while. It's like, yeah, this offense looks great, scoring 42 points, but the defense has to do more if they want to truly be contenders. And I think we kind of learned a lot more about this USC team. Like, this is what they are. High scoring defense is going to be problematic for them when they actually play legit talent.
Nobody scores 40 and loses like Lincoln Riley.
It's uncanny.
It's unbelievable.
So where does this go for the Pac-12 then, as like a macro? Because I think this is important for the Pac-12 in general. Unless UCLA runs the table, I don't think they won't be in the playoff again. I think with this loss, USC's out, even if they win the Pac-12. USC is going to have to beat UCLA, obviously. Now, Utah's 3-1 in conference. They're legitimately still alive in this thing now. So as like a broad overall picture, where does this put the Pac-12 kind of perspective for you?
Well, that's the fun part, I guess, about recording on Tuesdays is no matter what we say right now, when Oregon and UCLA square off on Saturday, the whole thing switched. Whoever wins, like if UCLA comes out and kicks the shit out of Oregon, then it's like, okay, maybe they will find their way into that playoff if they keep rolling like this. And if Oregon wins, it flips the whole thing on its head. But basically, what I think we saw, to me, this feels like a one-off year for UCLA. Everything's going right. DTR is finally the guy that they thought he was going to be. Zach Charbonnet's a monster. They have everything working. And then as far as Oregon goes, I mean, we've seen it with Oregon since basically year 2 of Helfrich. You can go back that far. This is just – it's going to be a team that finishes in the top 15. But for USC and Utah, I think this is the start of something beautiful, brother, because I don't think Whittingham's going anywhere, and we know Lincoln Riley's locked in.
Yeah, and we'll see about Oregon, right? Getting Downing over from Georgia. So, kind of it feels like when they got blasted to start by Georgia at home, you're like, this is bad, and they beat BYU. So, I mean, it's interesting, right? We're going to have to see. Like, it feels like it's going to be USC, Utah kind of squaring up. And then how does UCLA kind of filter in from there? So, and again, we'll see how this plays out for the rest of the year. But right now, I think, the Pac-12 is on the outside looking into the college football playoff, which they can't be happy about. Now, this one broke my heart.
He doesn't have the hat on today, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I don't. Michigan just pounds Penn State 41-17. It was 16-14 Michigan at half. And then Penn State scores 3 points in the second half. Michigan runs all over them. And I ask, now is Michigan a legit Big Ten contender? Because we kind of watch them playing Hawaii, Colorado State, UConn, and we're like, how good is the struggle against Maryland? Like, how good is this team really? This felt like a statement win at home again. I don't think really had a true road test yet. I don't know. So I just ask you, do you think they're a legit Big Ten contender? Can they compete with Ohio State, who's clearly head and shoulders above everybody?
I think so. I mean, in the nature of college football and the way that Michigan plays the game, they're going to be able to stay in games with a lot of different teams. Well, that remains to be seen. I guess they haven't played anybody with the prolific passing offense that Ohio State presents. No disrespect to Sean Clifford and the boys. And by the way, James Franklin saying that they have to address the fact there's only one tunnel at Michigan. It's like, do you want them to get a second one? Name it after you. Make it 2 feet wide, shoulder length. Like, how about don't throw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at the number 4 team in the country or whatever it is? Let's get this thing rocking. But to me, look, Michigan can run the shit out of the ball. We found that out, and we found it out. It was emphatic the way that they just kind of imposed their will. And to me, the only time, like a couple times last year, the defense imposed their will, but the offense really found their stride and started running all over people kind of towards the second half of the season. And that was kind of culminated in, Haskins had 5 touchdowns in the game. That's who they want to be. And we were making fun of Harbaugh for the coaching or the quarterback change at the beginning of the year. And, you knew this. And I'm sure he did. But I think that he wants their identity to be a bunch of badass dudes that are out there to fist fight you. And this was the first time this season, and it was only a half, but it was emphatic.
Yeah, and that was the thing, right? I mean, that offensive line is legit. They wear on you. They lean on you. They are well coached where they pass the defense off. I didn't think Penn State's defense played bad, and Penn State fans may come at me. That offense didn't do them any favors. The defense was on the field for 1 million plays. When you got to compete with that offensive line for 1 million plays, there's going to be rushing holes in your defense. So disappointing for Penn State.
No respect for Blake Corum.
I don't know, man. I mean, people are going a little overboard with that guy right now. I mean, the dude's tiny. Like Darren Sproles, if he's lucky, I don't know. Like people are trying to act like this guy's fucking Derrick Henry all of a sudden. It's just crazy. But yeah, I mean, in terms of a legit title contender for the Big Ten, sure, right? They have to beat Ohio State again. That's going to be in Ohio State this year. That's way different. Coming off an absolute ass kicking of Ohio State last year. And then they got to turn around and win another big game if they do beat Ohio State. They got to beat, let's not forget, they got to beat Michigan State. And they're not very good this year. For some reason, the demons come out whenever they play Michigan State. And so, I think they're clearly the number 2 best team in the Big Ten. I don't think they're as close to as good as Ohio State right now. I don't think they've been tested enough. So I'm going to say right now they're not a legit contender just because I think I hold Ohio State at such a high level. But I do think they're number 2 in the Big Ten, if that makes sense to you, Tyson.
Yeah, I got it. That's why I struggled to answer that, because legit feels like it could go one of 2 ways. They could end up somehow winning the Big Ten, but that would involve probably Ohio State stumbling somewhere along the way.
All right, kind of final crazy game to talk about that happened in the top 25. Number 13 TCU beats your boys at Oklahoma State, number 8 at the time, 43-40 in overtime. Double overtime. Just insane game. Now TCU 6-0, 3-0 in the Big 12. Now is TCU's the Big 12 to lose, and is your boy Sonny Dykes going to get this done in year 1?
Maybe. And that feels weird, man. I mean, preseason, I don't have what their odds were preseason in front of me. We were both saying, like, TCU is going to be a ton of fun. Like, you're going to want to watch them. You're going to want to bet the over pretty much every time they're on the field. It's going to be awesome. And then they just kind of kicked the shit out of people for the first handful of weeks of the season. It was like, TCU's really here. Like, they go back to play Sonny Dykes' old team. Not even close, right? Just dominate them. Now, this is a game against a team that in Oklahoma State that, in my view, has kind of established themselves as their, I don't want to say gatekeeper, because that kind of diminishes what they really are in the Big 12. But like, you don't know if you're good in that conference if you can't beat Oklahoma State, you have no shot. And TCU just outlasted them in a game that we've seen Oklahoma State win 10 times over the last 5 years. They play in these games. It feels like once, twice a season. They seem to always come out on top. TCU was fun, dude. Like
Yeah.
it's high, it's electric, it's high octane. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, well, I've pulled up the odds because I remember I wrote it down. So TCU was plus 1,400 to win the Big 12 preseason. Now, right now, they're second in the odds, plus 220.
Who's
Texas,
won?
our pick, Texas, plus 155. So, hey, Tyson, we're still got a chance here.
That feels like a lot of public money, my friend.
It feels interesting. It really does. Like I don't know why it's that. Who does TCU? I had it written down here somewhere, but I mean TCU is going to have big games for the rest of the year to close this thing out. Oklahoma or Texas has one, or Texas is undefeated in the Big 12, I believe, as well. So that's why I think they have a better roster too. So that's probably factored in. Now TCU, if they play the way they've been playing, or no, Texas is 3-1 in the Big 12.
Yeah,
because they lost 2 at Texas Tech. That's right. So that's even an interesting line in of itself there. But regardless, I mean, I think if TCU continues to play the way they have with this explosive offense, defense doing just enough. I don't think they're a great defense, but it feels like they make timely plays when they need to.
Yeah, man. Yes,
right?
Yes, they do. And I don't know how many times I've said it. I'm going to continue to say it, but that's college football.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. That's all that it ever has been. That's all that it will be. You can have the number one defense in the country, but if they don't if Georgia doesn't stop Bama on fourth down, we got a whole different conversation coming into this year.
And that's why Georgia and Alabama have been dominant for so long, but they've been able to get beaten by teams who are lesser talents because all of a sudden here's a pick six here. Oh, there's that big pass break up there. And TCU kind of has that going right now. They walk around like they kind of know they're the shit a little bit on that sideline. Like they got a little swagger to them over there. I definitely think, I mean, if you want to buy in this market right now, I mean, you're getting a short price to where the buy-in was, but 220 for the team, I think, has played the best out of anybody in this conference. I don't think that's a bad bet at all.
Are you ready for the remaining schedule? I got it in front of me here.
Yes, I am.
So this Saturday, they play Kansas State.
Oh, that's right.
That's
a big game.
That'll be.
And they're
huge.
Home or away, TCU?
I believe they're at home. I think I have that down right. And then they're at West Virginia. Probably going to win that game. Home against Texas Tech. Probably going to win that game. And then they end the season with Baylor and TCU, but between the Baylor and Iowa State, and they should win both those. Between that game, Brad, they go to Texas.
Okay.
And maybe that's where maybe people are like, well, Ewers is back. Have you seen the way they look? Did you see what they did to Oklahoma? Oklahoma beat Kansas. So what does that mean? And so that could be why that line's short. But when you run through that schedule, like it's a huge game this weekend against Kansas State. And if you want in, get in now, because if they win that game, that line is shrinking dramatically.
I'm going to run through Texas real quick. At Oklahoma State, at Kansas State, home TCU, at Kansas, home Baylor. It's not like they're playing cupcakes.
No. And they're pissed off Oklahoma State too.
Oh, man. Let's see here. That's the last thing I have written down. Anything kind of final thoughts you want to talk about in the top 25?
Well, I just want to point out the fact that, I mean, no disrespect to Sam Howell, but we were right a year ago. Drake May's better. So we're just going to leave that as however you want to take it. But, I mean, that's the best quarterback play I've seen in North Carolina in quite a while.
But you don't like Trubisky?
I mean, I wasn't a fan then. I'm a bigger fan now.
After beating Tom Brady, your boy?
Yeah, we'll take that.
All right, let's move into some games we've circled, betting lines. I have 6 games I've already bet so far that's out in our chalkboard that I really like. I highly recommend getting on these. That's why you got to get in our chalkboard. These numbers are going to be gone probably by tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're watching this, that's why you got to get in this chalkboard, link in the bio. But let's just kind of go through, Tyson. First game that I really have circled that I'm looking at that I haven't bet. Cincinnati -3 on the road at SMU. I'm intrigued by that one. SMU comes off a big bounce back game against Navy. They have not looked good, and that offense has sputtered. Now, since he's not the team they were last year, it feels like they're starting to figure this thing out a bit, though. That feels short to me. I don't know about you, but I'd be leaning Cincy given 3 on the road.
Yeah, and I would be very surprised if this closed at 3. This is we don't like pushes, but anytime you get like a round number at something you're comfortable with, I think it's worthwhile to get in there. One that I don't know if I have a lean here, but one game I'm super excited for is Syracuse Clemson,
Mm.
and that number's 13.5 right now, and Syracuse has been a lot better than I thought they're going to be. I was kind of pounding the table. I was like, Sean Tucker's the man. They're going to be good. I didn't think they'd be undefeated right now. Clemson hasn't really put anybody good away. Then that's the bugaboo here, and we're going to find out how good Syracuse really is. But just looking at it, I think I'm talking myself into Syracuse plus 13.5, and they might even be able to backdoor this thing. But that spread is huge for for a top 15 matchup.
Yeah, it's big spread there. I tend to agree with you. I'm leaning Syracuse in that one too. I think Kansas Syracuse story Cinderella story might be coming into in here. They got to go at Baylor. The line is Baylor -7.5. I think it's going to move and tick up higher. Baylor's great on defense. I don't think Daniels is going to be back for this one. You got another backup with more and Bean with more tape on him. I think this could be a get right game for Baylor as well. They're going to be able to score on that defense. I'm just kind of scared away a little bit by that 7.5 number. I do think it gets a little higher, but we'll see. You're probably going to want to get in before the close because all of a sudden Kansas is the darlings of everybody now, and I think they covered again with that 10.5 number last week. So,
well, I got it at 8.5 because I'm an idiot. So, kind of busted some things I had working. This one's gonna hurt, man. And I've been right every time I've said it so far. Ole Miss is plus 1.5 at LSU. Tennessee was plus 2.5 or minus 2.5 at LSU. They kicked the shit out of them. I think people are still thinking about Florida as the team that beat Utah and not the team that's put out the tape the last 6 weeks. And so LSU being able to beat Florida, I think people were kind of like surprised. Oh, they went down to the swamp and they beat Florida. Florida's no good either, right? It was like watching is a Spider-Man meme of these two teams pointing at each other. That's what it felt like. Ole Miss is good. Like they can really, really score the ball, and LSU can't score enough to keep up with them. I don't really have a lean as far as the over-under goes. 66.5 is really high to me. But like Ole Miss undefeated plus money on the money line against a kind of meh LSU team, like they're good. They're going to hit the over on wins. We had them at I think it was 6.5. There's a 5.5 that we had.
it is. I can tell you. Let me pull that up. But that, I mean, so you're going after a big win. You're kind of going away from them.
Yeah, because this is the same team that it's been all season. Like this is the team that lost to Florida State still. Keishawn Butte was finally seen in person. Turns out he still plays football for LSU. So that was good. That was good to see him. But, I mean, unless he has 200 yards, I just don't see a way that they're going to score enough.
We got LSU at 6.5.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're still probably going to hit that number. They're at 5-2 right now. But they're the team this year that's going to flirt with that top 25 all season. They're going to be in the others receiving votes, or they'll be 25, 24, and they'll get knocked right back into the receiving votes category. And they're just creeping up a little bit too high right now.
Here's an interesting one. Georgia Southern is getting 2.5 on the road at Old Dominion. Now, here's why I'm intrigued by it. Juice is kind of leaning towards Georgia Southern. Maybe this gets down to 2, maybe gets a little shorter than that. I mean, Old Dominion just pounded Coastal Carolina on the road. That's a huge win for that team. And they beat Virginia Tech earlier and they stumbled after. Maybe it's kind of get high, get low, get high, get low. Maybe that's what's going to happen here. Just have it circled. I want to dig a little bit more into that game, but that was something that caught my eye. Like, man, that feels short. Is this something where it could be a letdown spot for Old Dominion?
Yeah, really could be. And by the way, the Chanticleers getting housed was a bit of a shocker to me, at least.
I had them laying points last week.
I thought they were better than that, brother. One more that I'm early lean on. Pittsburgh, Louisville over 55.5. This just to me feels like it's two teams that are going to score the ball and they're going to score it often. They're fun college football teams, and that's what both of them are. And when those two kind of styles clash, it turns into a who can get to 50 first.
Last one for me. Louisiana Lafayette's given 6.5 at home against Arkansas State, who kept it close against Southern Miss last week on the road. They got to go back on the road again They're 1-3 in Sun Belt, 2-5 overall. I'm leaning Louisiana Lafayette here. They started off slow. I think they've been starting to pick this up a bit here, laying less than a touchdown at home against a team back-to-back road weeks who's not very good and coached by Butch Davis. I think I'm going to lean there. I'm not sure if I'm going to take that yet. It looks like it's going to go up to 7, but I'm not sure yet, but that's one I have circled.
Yeah, I think that's everything I got. The one thing I do want to point out is the look-ahead odds came out for Tennessee, Georgia. Georgia early minus 11.5. Don't touch it if you want Tennessee yet, because that's going to get way closer as we get towards game time.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now too. Wow.
Georgia, I mean, if you want Tennessee, now is not a bad time to go ahead and place that thing.
Yeah. Oof, that's an interesting one. The Ohio State early look ahead for Michigan is 10.5 at home. So given 10.5 at home. Interesting. All right. Let's move into money making time, Tyson. I'm going to give out some picks. I'm not sure how many you have. So I'll jump right into the first one I got. And I'm going to take Indiana plus 3.5 on the road at Rutgers. And this is a big number play for me. Here is that potential is good as well. But Indiana's defense is pretty poor. So is Rutgers going to be able to score the ball here? I just think Indiana has better players. I think coaching's pretty comparable, and I'm getting over a field goal here. I'm going to take Indiana.
Yeah, I love it. You cut out for most of that, so I missed the. I assume you were saying that your brother is an alumnus of Indiana.
No, I didn't mention that.
That was the entire thing that you had going for you. Look, I don't feel good about this, Brad, but I think Duke's going to beat Miami.
Whoa.
I know. I don't really have a reason. It just feels like a game that Miami's going to lose. Duke started out good. Duke looks like shit.
Are you taking the money line?
Yeah. It's plus 255,
wow.
brother. I don't want the points. I don't want the points. This isn't going on any parlays. This is just a gut feeling that I have watching Miami play. This is a letdown spot. This is a game that they should realistically win by 30, and we've seen that twice this year. They lost both of them. So to me, absolutely no reason, but this is a bet I'm placing it full faith.
I love that. I mean, that's what Tyson does here. If you're new around here, Tyson loves. He's like, yeah. He just pulls out the shooter off his hip. It's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm taking Houston minus 2.5 on the road at Navy or home against Navy. Man, oh man. I mean, here's the thing. I guess no, it is at Navy. Navy had to have 17 points against SMU on the road. They exerted a lot of energy last week. Navy's been playing a lot better, but so is Houston. Houston has better players. This is a team that should have been and was the favorite to win their conference. They've underperformed. Dana Holgerson, I don't think he's a very good coach, but for the level that he coaches at, it seems like he can figure it out during the season, and it feels like they're on a trajectory that's getting better. SMU just shredded up Navy through the air. Houston can do the same thing, and I'm laying less than a field goal here. I'm going to take Houston minus 2.5.
Can I get you to go back to the well with me on BYU, my friend?
God, man, are you sure, dude? BYU.
I think BYU to me is Nebraska to you, where we just can't seem to quit them, man. I mean, I'm looking at this, and there's no way to me, outside of actually watching the games and seeing the BYU is not that good. They should be easily 7 points better than Liberty. That's just the way that they've played this season has been truly disappointing from when we thought they were going to be. But this is just one of those ones, man, where like if they can't beat Liberty by 7 points, they're cooked. There's no silver lining here. We're never betting BYU again until next season when we inevitably talk ourselves into whoever is starting at quarterback, because that's kind of the way we do things with BYU. But this is a game they just have to have, man. They just have to win this game and 6.5 I'm comfortable with.
Third pick for me here. I'm going to go Ohio State minus 28.5 at home against Iowa. Iowa may not score in this game, legitimately. And this defense isn't as good as it's been. They can get stomped out by Ohio State, who's coming off a bye. Like, they're getting ready for this defense, too. Like, they're at home with some of that bullshit going on in Iowa. There's some voodoo on that field. I think Ohio State makes a statement here. they want to just roll teams, and I don't think Iowa's going to be able to score the ball in this one. Ohio State's going to cruise to a victory.
How's this? Ohio State covers and the under hits. 49.5.
Oh my god, dude. That is so gross.
How does that
35
sound?
nothing or something?
Is it 45 to 3? Like I mean, there's a real world. If this over hits, Ohio State gets there by themselves. Basically,
right.
is the way that this has to go. So if you think Ohio State can score 50 on Iowa, then it's probably not a bad, or 41. Maybe it's 41-10, right? But I don't think Iowa's getting in the end zone. So to me, I just think we're going to see a lot of some freshman 5-star recruits from Ohio State playing most of the second half.
Are you combining those?
Yeah, I'm combining them, brother.
What's what are the odds on that?
Let me pull it up.
Because I'm trying to think. It's got to be plus 210 or 220, right?
Where did the game go? Now I got it all messed up out here. Yeah, it's 49.5.
49. Oh my god, that is such a
it's a weird number.
Big spread, small
it's gone.
total.
I can't find it on my FanDuel. I don't know where it went.
Oh, here we go. I got it pulled up.
You got it.
Let's see, what is that? Plus 182. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Here we go. Plus 319.
Jeez,
so Tyson is walking the tightrope, but I love it. That's plus 319 if both those things happen.
We'll place it both ways. I mean, we're making money either way. As long as Ohio State covers, what you and I both think they will, $10 on each, you end up making money.
Fourth game for me here. I'm going to a big total. Already locked this in. I'm going to go North Texas UTSA over 70.5. UTSA didn't have to exert any effort last week against FIU. North Texas scores a lot. They give up a lot. This is going to be a shootout. UTSA was prepping for this one. I mean, they literally benched their quarterback for the fourth quarter, and they weren't even up very big against FIU. They're like, yeah, we'll just pack it in. Nobody's going to get hurt. We're getting ready for North Texas in a big game for both these teams. So I'm going to take the over in this one, over 70.5 between these two.
And there's no team total out right now on FanDuel, but I'm very interested in the Notre Dame team total against UNLV. I'm grossed out by a 25.5 point spread. I'm grossed out by a 47.5 under in a game with a 25.5 point spread. But I want to see where Notre Dame team total comes in because UNLV sucks. Like they're bad, and Notre Dame isn't great, man. Like we keep trying to talk ourselves into this. And by the way, shout out NBC and Peacock and all those guys for paying so much money to get Notre Dame in the worst season of the last 15 years for the program. But this is one. I mean, you wrote over, but I might be taking under.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
We'll see where that comes out. If that line is somewhere around 30 points, that's where it gets interesting because I just like these teams stink. I'm not high on either one. Obviously lower on UNLV, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, I typed in the wrong thing here. It's interesting because UNLV had started off not bad and then they've gotten pounded the past 2 weeks. I mean, they're also missing their quarterback. Is that going to do something where Notre Dame can kind of take over? Maybe you have some defensive touchdowns or more possessions. That's something interesting to think about. But remember, they also want to run the ball, so the clock's going to be moving a lot more when there's incompletions. And, in college football, you got the first down stoppage. So theoretically, you have more time, more plays that you can run. Fifth one for me here that I've already bet, Wake Forest minus 20.5. I didn't get this line at all. I mean, this is at home. This is at home against a Boston College team whose defense is not very good. I mean, they got absolutely lit up by Clemson. And then the first half, a little bit closer. In that second half, they got lit up. Wake Forest has better offense than Clemson. Now, the question mark is, can this defense stop the BC offense? So I think started to play a little bit better. But I think Wake Forest is going to blow them out. So I'm taking them minus 20.5.
And this goes against a little bit of what we've done as far as money-making time goes. But, Brad, if you remember preseason, I had a Hendon Hooker Heisman Trophy ticket. Right now, C.J. Stroud is plus 100 to win the Heisman Trophy. Hendon Hooker is plus 440, distant second. Hendon Hooker just had his moment. Everybody's going to remember that. That's one of the best games. That will be the best game of the year. I'm locking that back in. The thing is that if C.J. Stroud goes off for 500 yards against Michigan, then his moment happened second, and that's the one we're going to remember.
Right.
But beating Alabama the way they beat them with the remaining schedule, As long as Hendon Hooker doesn't get embarrassed by Georgia, it's his award to lose, as far as I'm concerned. And if he goes out and he has another 300-yard game with doesn't turn the ball over and they compete with Georgia, there's no way that CJ Stroud takes this award.
Yeah, it's a narrative thing, right? We're kind of sick of like the Bama and the Ohio State and so after this, if
transfer quarterback, check. 6-year senior, check. Beat Alabama, check. Team goes back to relevancy after 15 years in the gutter, check. That's every single narrative we get every year.
Exactly.
He's got them all.
And I think the only thing potentially is that Stroud's stats are going to absolutely dwarf Hendon Hooker's, unfortunately. So how much are the writers going to go narrative, or how much are they going to go stats?
They're already bored of Stroud in the national media. It's like, yeah, he threw for 400 yards. Oh, did you see what Marvin Harrison Jr. did? Disregarding the fact the balls were perfect.
Yeah,
it's just like look at these wide receivers.
That is interesting. And so last one for me here, and we can kind of keep going on that before we close. I'm just going to lock in Oregon State minus 23.5 right now at home, hosting Colorado, who got their first win of the year, beating Cal. Then you got to turn around and go play Oregon State, who hasn't played well. I think they're going to crank it up for this one, and they're going to pound Colorado, who's a bad football team, even though they just fired their head coach and got their first win of the season in an upset in overtime. But do you want to talk a little Heisman to close it? I mean, it's interesting to me because, I mean, if you look at it overall, right, it's just like the narrative in general. Bryce Young was never going to win this year. Like CJ Stroud, he's the favorite. He's going to have the stats. At some point, I mean, Joel Klatt's pushing for your guy, Hendon Hooker now. I mean, I think this is going to become a lot more about a narrative type of performance than if we just go, well, on stat lines this, stat lines this, stat lines this.
Oh, of course. And that's the way the award goes, because if it was just stat lines, a lot of these guys, you can point out 5 of the last 10 winners that shouldn't even maybe been in New York as far as stat lines go. Look, people are in love with Tennessee right now. And this was kind of the reasoning when we were first talking about this, was it's a narrative-driven award. That's why, to me, I wasn't interested in Bryce Young or CJ Stroud at the same amount of like the equity that you have to put into those guys in order to get a good return is quite a bit higher than it was on other guys. And now we're getting to the point where we're still $3.40 away on the money line there. And to me, that's huge. Like if they were even, then I'm not locking this back in. But to me, this is a lot like when somebody, like if you have you have a Kevin Durant MVP ticket in the NBA, and he's 6th before the season starts, and then for the first 3 months he's averaging 35 and 5, and then you check and he's still behind Embiid and Jokic. You want back in, and to me that's what this is, because every time you talk about Ohio State, it's like CJ Stroud. Talk to anybody, and it's almost like their success, like he's a symptom of Ohio State's success right now, when in reality, it's the fact that he's probably the best quarterback they've ever had. And he slings the ball all over the place, and he's unreal, and he's probably going number 1 in the draft. He's a monster. People don't care. Every single Instagram post is, Jackson Smith-Njigba's not playing, but look at these other receivers. Look at what is it? What's the
running backs, right?
Yeah, Brian Hartline. Look at what he can do with all these guys. Disregarding that fact, Tennessee has some monsters playing wide receiver for him, but look at Hendon Hooker, and he just beat Alabama, and can you believe that? And so for $3.40 on the juice there, if he can go play with Georgia later in the year, locked. Conversation.
If they beat Georgia, he's winning this award. And I think that's what you're betting on here. And that money line price plus 400, I don't know what the money line is going to be on Tennessee, Georgia. It may be similar. It may be different. If it's anything less than plus 400, if you think Tennessee can win that game, take the Hendon Hooker Heisman at plus 400 compared to what? I don't know what it would be, but let's say it's plus 330. You're getting 70 extra cents of juice on the Heisman, because there's no way he doesn't win if they beat Georgia. I mean, talk about something insane there. Any other things, Heisman? Any things you want to wrap up with college football wise before we get out of here, Tyson?
Just hop on the chalkboard, because these numbers are going to change. Brad's already locked some of his in. I'd like to wait till later in the week, kind of see where things settle. So we'll be posting this stuff in there. Yeah, man, we got to awesome UFC card coming up on Saturday, so that'll be in there as well.
I can't wait to bet that one with you.
Apparently the
basically
NBA is
Tyson's
back.
going to put these in. He's going to put these picks in. I'm literally going to be like, yep, whatever Tyson says, bing, 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 and I'm going to wake up with more money in my account.
we hope. That's the goal.
Hockey's rolling. NBA's back. College basketball is going to be back soon. And plus, don't forget about the NFL and NCAA football. We're not forgetting about that on this episode here. So we got a lot going on that chalkboard. So make sure to follow that. That's in the link. Make sure to join. It's an app. Literally, it's like a Discord. So it's free to join. We're not charging you shit. We just want to have some fun in there with everybody and try to make some money together. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share our show. Follow us on our social medias. Instagram and TikTok are the same @_ the Roundtable Pod _, and Twitter is @TRT _pod. We appreciate you guys listening as always. Thursday after Thursday Night Football is going to be our live episode. Come join us. It's going to be absolutely awesome. No, it's going to be a little late for some people, but it should be a good time as we kind of break everything down live. We will talk to you then. So until next time, guys, peace.